And we are live. Hi, Katie Zed.
Hi, Nate. How are you?
I'm doing good. I want to introduce myself to our audience here right now. So, this is a new show that I am starting. It is called Reality Darkly. We are going to dive into some dark, strange, even some paranormal fun stuff. But today we're going to cover some true crime and a serial killer. And this case is very near and dear to my heart. And I want to get into that for a minute, but first I want to introduce myself a little bit to you guys since this is the very first episode and you know nothing about me. Again, my name is Nathan. I'm a Christian, I'm a husband, a father, and a podcaster. This is my very first time trying to do, it says echo. Oh no. I don't hear it, but hopefully that gets better. So this is my very first time trying to do true crime. So bear with me. And I think this is going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be a fun journey that we together. Okay. Is the echo better? I hope I had
Go ahead.
to. Okay.
Keep talking. I'm going to check the echo and we'll troubleshoot as you're introducing yourself.
Okay. So I'm a huge true crime fan. I think I started by listening to like Mr. Ballin videos that would just come on Facebook. And then I had a friend that Echo? No echo? No echo, says Connie. Awesome. Okay. Fantastic. So I think I first started by watching Mr. Ballin videos that were on Facebook. Then a friend suggested Morbid. And then I found Crime Junkie, Serialously, This is Monsters. And then my friend Katie Zed here, I found her show. And this has been a lot of fun. I had a job where I could just put in an earbud and I could just listen to podcasts all day. And that's what I did. So it was a lot of fun. And I'm trying something new and kind of radical. I am trying to make content full time now. So I'm done with the job, done with the 9 to 5, and I'm trying to do this. So we're going to see how that works out. If you guys like the show at the end of this, not yet. Listen to it, see if you enjoy it, see if you like it, and then think about supporting us. We started a little stupid Patreon. So that would be awesome. But right now, we're going to get into this case that I said is near and dear to my heart. Was always kind of intriguing and also kind of haunting because this happened when I was a kid. A friend of mine, a kid that I grew up with, his name was Jimmy, and his family, most of his family, his mother and his sister, and they had a foreign exchange student, were all murdered when I think we were about 10 or 11 when this happened. We were pretty young, and I remember this like really hitting our little like tight-knit small community. We lived in like a small town. Everybody knew everybody, and this was a really big deal. I mean for everybody, but also like just yeah. And I can tell you, just I don't want to like really get too much into that because I don't want to sound exploitative. But I would just say that Jimmy is and still is. I'd say he was really bright, really athletic. The first kid that I ever saw that could do a backflip. I thought Jimmy was the coolest kid in the world.
That's something when you're 10.
Yeah, dude, he could jump on a tree and do a backflip. It was crazy. And he was definitely never really the same after this. Like he was always troubled and there was a darkness there, obviously, right? And so I've always really wanted to dive into this and kind of do a deep dive. So I have my friend Katie Zed here. So I think really to get to like the nitty gritty of this, we have to start when Cary was a young man.
Yes.
And he had, and I guess we can jump into like the depth of his childhood earlier, but later, but like the first thing that kind of happened where the Stayner family kind of became somewhat famous was his brother being kidnapped. And Katie wanted to cover this part particularly. So, Katie, I'm going to hand the baton over to you.
Well, like you said just a minute ago, that your friend Jimmy was deeply affected by a crime happening to him back when he was a child. And I think the same thing happened to Cary, where when he was a child, a crime affected him and his family, and that's what I'm gonna get into now, and then we'll get into the debauchery that Cary got into, later on in life. But when s Cary had 4 siblings, there was 5 of them total in their family, 5 in my family too, by the way, 2 boys and 3 girls, just like my family. On December 4th, 1972, Stephen Steiner, is it Stainer or Steiner? You knew this.
Steiner, I think. Cary,
Steiner.
no, Stayner. Cary Stayner. Yeah, yeah.
Steiner, okay.
At least
So
here in America,
yeah,
maybe
Steiner.
Steiner sounds German. Yeah.
Steven Steiner, was Carrie's little brother. He was 7 years younger than Carrie. This is all hitting home for me too, because my older brother, who's in the chat right now, is 7 years older than I am, so it kinda lines up a little bit. But little brother was kidnapped as a 7-year-old from Merced, California. He was abducted while walking home from school. So he's walking home from school, and keep in mind, he kinda was in trouble at the time too, not in trouble, like, as in trouble as you can get as a 7-year-old, right? He was, back talking, he came home late, he's supposed to come home when the street lights come on, he didn't come home on time, so, in a 7-year-old's mind, he's in big trouble at home, so he was kinda lollygagging, getting home from school, and he's passing by a gas station, and at the gas pump, there's a man asking for donations for a church. He's handing out pamphlets and things like that, and there's another man who's the actual kidnapper sitting in the car, Kenneth Parnell, who's, alleging to be a reverend, which, by the way, he is not a reverend, he's just telling people this, right? So he ends up telling Stephen, or the other gentleman, which I didn't write his name down, I forget what the guy's name is, but his accomplice, who was a mentally challenged man who was also manipulated by Parnell, is telling Stephen, "Hey, we're collecting donations for the church. Do you think your mom would have anything to donate?" Like, they're doing, like, a yard sale or a junk they call it different things in different parts of the country, but basically a rummage sale or a yard sale, to raise money for the church. "Do you think your mom would have anything?" And Stephen's like, "Yeah, my mom would probably donate something." And this guy's like, "Well, where do you live?" And Stephen's like, "Just down that way a couple of blocks. I'll meet you down there." And they're like, "No, get in the car. We'll give you a ride." And being a 7-year-old, he was never taught about stranger danger or anything like that. I think this case in particular is why we all got the stranger danger talk, because, as we'll find out in a little bit, they did a made for TV movie about this that everybody in the country watched, and this is back in the time where you had to sit down, make an appointment to what it was pre-VCRs, pre-DVRs, like, you couldn't pull it up on demand. Everyone watched this all at the same time. It was one of the most viewed made-for-TV movies, up to that point, about the kidnapping of Stephen Stayner. Um, anyway, sorry, lost my train of thought there, Nate. So he ends up getting in the car. He also, another thing that I found out in researching this is he did not know his own phone number, and I can remember as a child, my parents, I can still tell you my childhood phone number because it was ingrained into
Same
our
here.
heads to know your
Yeah.
address and your phone number, and I think this happened in 1972. This may have been one of the reasons why.
Yeah.
So as they're passing by Stephen Street, he's like, turn here." And they're like, "Oh, no, I talked to your mom, and she said you can spend the night with us." And keep in mind, he doesn't know these dudes, but he's also been told not to disrespect adults and to listen to adults. So he's like, "Okay." They transport him to they transport him to Parnell's cabin in Kathy's Valley, and he manipulated and brainwashed this kid for years. Years. He's manipulated and brainwashed this kid, told him that his parents didn't want him anymore. He got out of Stephen that he was in trouble for, the little the sins of a 7-year-old, I guess you would say. And he was told his parents don't want him anymore, which is crazy. And he's told that then after that, he's saying, "Well, can I call my parents?" He's like, "No, no, no, I talked to your parents. They said, we talked to a judge and you're my son now." So he starts calling Parnell dad. He's told that he has to call Parnell dad. He's told that after that, he's told when he asked to talk to his parents again, he's told that his dad had a heart attack and died, and that his mom moved back east somewhere, and all the kids have been adopted by different families. So there's no way you're ever going to see your family again. So after years of this, Stephen believes this because he's a second grader. Like, why would he not believe adults, right? Hold on one second. Sorry.
Bless you.
I didn't want to sneeze into the. Ooh, I don't know. It snuck up on me. Anyway, so he ends up getting some sort of he carved out a semblance of normality. He was allowed to attend school. He was allowed to have friends. Uh, at this point, he was so completely brainwashed that Parnell had no worries about him, you know, saying anything. They moved from place to place. Anytime anybody would ask any questions at all, he would uh he would pick up the kids and move them. At one point, he molested one of Stephen's friends, one of his school friends, and the mother questioned or went to the police. The police questioned him about it. They moved in the middle of the night to a new place. This is going on for 7 years, which is a crazy amount of time. And in February 1980, Parnell, of course, Stephen is a teenager at this point. He's 14 years old. That's no longer a child. Parnell is a pedophile, so he needs a child, like a little child. So he ends up kidnapping a 5-year-old named Timmy White. And when Stephen sees this happening, he's like, "I know what I went through." He was sexually molested for 7 years over and over and over again. He sees what he went through. He doesn't want that to happen to somebody else. It's one thing when something's happening to you, but when you see it happening to somebody else, like he just doesn't want to see that happen. So he ends up the next month. So this he's kidnapped in February. The very next month, so a couple of weeks later, really, Stephen takes Timothy and he, in the middle of the night, walks for miles and miles and miles until they find a nearby town. He finds a police station. He goes into the police station and the police are like, "Well, who are you?" And this is where the famous line, which is what the movie and the book was named after he says, "I know my first name is Stephen." That's all he remembered about himself 7 years later. So they did end up making a movie about that, and I have a little clip that I'll show if you can share. Why is it not?
Do you have to refresh the page? I don't know why it looks like. There we go.
Maybe some kid out there that's missing will see it and come forward and make an attempt to go home.
The real-life ordeal of a kidnapped child held captive for 7 years comes out of the shadows and into prime time. The inside story on Entertainment Tonight for Thursday, April 20th, 1989.
We'll mute Entertainment Tonight's theme music.
Okay, that's probably a good idea.
Hello,
Yeah.
everybody. I'm Mary Hart.
And I'm John Tesh. He was kidnapped at age 7, held captive for 7 years, and when he returned home, even adjusting to life with his parents became an ordeal. Now the bizarre story of Cary Stayner is coming to television. That's our inside story for today. In 1972, 7-year-old Cary Stayner was kidnapped while on his way home from school in Merced, California. For the next several years, he was forced to live as the son of his abductor, a previously convicted sex offender named Kenneth.
Look at how creepy this guy is. Pedo
man.
eyes right there. Am I wrong?
Dude, that hairline is not doing him any favors either. The eyebrows, yeah, the smile, the shape of his face, yeah, everything is just terrifying.
tilted down, looking at the camera like that. Never take a picture like that. It's super creepy.
Parnell, and he did so until he managed to escape 7 years later. His emotional return home to an overjoyed family in 1980 made national news, and his subsequent testimony in court helped put Parnell behind bars in the state penitentiary. Now, 17 years after his long ordeal began, the extraordinary story of Stephen's life during and after this traumatic experience is the subject of an upcoming miniseries. The two-part drama is called I Know My First Name is Stephen. It stars Corin Nemec as the teenage Stephen, and Beverly Hills cops John Ashton and St. Elsewhere Cindy Pickett as his parents. For them, this was a story that just had to be told.
It brings a tear to almost everyone. It's just the fact that a human being can be a child, can be cruelly dehumanized like this. And it's moving to everybody.
I'm really pleased to be associated with it. And I think it's a fascinating story. And if it wasn't true, I don't think anyone would believe it.
Hop in, son. The preacher here, he'll drive you home.
The story, in fact, is remarkable. Abducted and convinced by his captor that his parents no longer wanted nor could afford him, Stephen lived a life of constant fear and was routinely sexually abused. He was forced to call his kidnapper Dad, and outwardly seemed to have a normal life.
Happy Valentine's Day. This is your new little brother.
But at 14, when Parnell brought home another 5-year-old kidnapped victim, Stephen took the child, and together they escaped from their rural captivity and went to the police.
You say he looked just like you did at age 14?
By the way, this right here, this man with the mustache is Stephen. He played a police officer in the miniseries. So he was on set and helped create this whole movie. And it is not a documentary. So there are some stories, like some parts of it that are, it's not true to form, is what I'm saying. So don't watch this and think you're getting the whole story. It is dramatized because it is entertainment. But I thought it was pretty interesting that he was there during the filming of this, and was kind of watching over and seeing what was done. And you can see how he grew up. He's a upstanding young man. He's a hero, really. He saved that other kid. So
yeah, I think that's an interesting part of it too. Yeah, go for it. I was just going to say how much of a hero his brother became. And we'll get into that later, how he always kind of felt overshadowed by his brother. Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Now 23, Steve is married with 2 kids and looks forward to a career in law enforcement. During the filming of the miniseries, he even had an opportunity to portray a police officer. But acting aside, he says the painful ordeal he went through is something that he still struggles with.
Any chance I get to talk about it, I think really helps me deal with the problem. The more I talk about it, the better I can deal with it.
His mother, Kay, says she hopes by telling their story, other parents may be able to learn from their mistakes.
Because we didn't really talk that much with our kids about dealing with awkward situations or bad situations. We told them don't talk to strangers. We never told them what a stranger was.
As for Steve, he's just hopeful that by focusing attention on his experience, the misfortune he suffered will somehow be able to make a positive difference for others.
We're hoping it'll reach the people out there and inform them that stranger abduction, child abduction of any kind is a serious problem. Maybe some kid out there that's missing will see it and come forward and make an attempt to go home.
Sorry about that. I think Mr. Zed just got home from work. So anybody out there who has children, especially young children, teach them what a stranger is. Teach them. And I think we all sort of do this these days. But it's very important, no matter how young they are, that they know you don't get into a car with a stranger, even if they say, I know your family, I know your parents. Get a code word for them. That sort of stuff. If anybody walks away with anything from this, it's that. Teach your kids about stranger danger.
100%. Yeah. It's really tough too, especially when you grow up in such a small town. You feel like you can just kind of trust people, especially in your neighborhoods. And
Yeah.
I mean, Merced, California, I don't know what the size of it is now, but I'm sure it was quite a bit smaller then.
Yeah.
Um, and it was the 1970s, dude. People left their houses unlocked.
Yeah.
They let their kids run around all day long, but I wouldn't describe their childhood as normal. So
No,
I think
definitely not. Definitely not
this is where
normal.
we can start to get into this a little bit because, as you touched on earlier, it was sorry, us. Give me 1 second here. I've got all my notes here, and so Cary was the oldest of five kids.
Yep.
He had three sisters, and then he had his little brother, and he particularly felt kind of unloved because I mean his parents were not very loving. His mother had also suffered sexual abuse from her father, and so she was I don't know how to describe it besides very cold. And it's one of those things that you have to kind of do, kind of separate yourself from your emotions just to protect yourself because like it has to mean nothing, that sort of thing, or else you have to acknowledge the pain and all those things. And it's really hard, I mean, people have to deal with that stuff to become a normal human being afterward. And it's really hard to do that shadow work. And for some people, you just can't, and so, I mean, you have to kind of feel sorry for Cary's mom. But you also have to recognize that Cary's mom was kind of a butthead and showed zero affection and showed zero emotion. And Cary was her first, and she just kind of like definitely emotional neglect is a nice way of putting it. And anytime that he would show any emotion, she would shame him. And it was kind of, the toxic masculinity that people
boys aren't supposed to have emotions like that. Boys aren't supposed to cry. Boys aren't supposed to do this or do that. And that's unhealthy.
And it seemed like Cary was kind of an emotional kid. He was kind of an interesting kid. And his mom just would kind of just shame him out of it. So he was not allowed to show any emotion at all. And then his dad was like cold as ice as well, mentally, physically abusive. And then we get into it later that his father was also a pedophile and molested one of his sisters,
and the
which
uncle
is really dark. And we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. Well, first I wanted to talk about how this affected Cary. So his little brother goes missing, and obviously his parents are a wreck, and they were already a little neglectful as far as affection goes, but with the little brother missing, everything is about Stephen. They wanted to keep all of Stephen's things in case he came back. They couldn't move just in case Stephen comes back. They couldn't, they couldn't. I don't know if this was just part of the movie or if this was a real thing, but Stephen had like carved his name on the garage door. And when they were painting the garage, Cary almost painted over it and got beat for it because Stephen had written his name on the garage, which he was in trouble for when it happened. But then it's a reminder of Stephen. So everything in all of their lives was always Stephen, who was not even there. And I imagine after a few years, most people would lose hope. The mom said she never lost hope, but the dad said that he thought his son was dead. He thought he would never see him again. And I imagine the other siblings thought the same thing, but they're living in this darkness of this missing child. And then Stephen comes back and the light shines upon Stephen and everyone else is lost in the background. There's news. I don't have any of them pulled up, but there's news. Maybe it's in one of these, but there's like news conferences where you see Cary just standing in the background. Nobody's talking to him. Nobody's asking him how he feels about it. It's all about Stephen. And I have, he even did an interview on Good Morning America all about Stephen. Cary was used to having his own room because before the boy shared one room, the girl shared another room. Same way in my house when I was growing up, right? It was a 3-bedroom house. Well, it was actually a 2-bedroom house, and my dad makeshifted a bedroom in the basement as well. But I grew up with 7 people in a 2-bedroom house, and all 3 girls shared a room, and the 2 boys shared a room, and my parents had a room. So now Cary has had his own room for 7 years and has to have this person that he doesn't know this person. This
Yeah.
is a stranger to him, come back and try to share a room with him.
And as much as he probably, I'm sure, cared and missed his brother, there was also some resentment he probably held against his brother as well. Because, yeah, like I was saying before, Cary never felt any real love or affection from his parents, and he was always in the shadow of his brother, even before his brother had been kidnapped. Like, his brother had always been the favorite. They always would kind of anything that he had wanted, any kind of love or affection that he had been looking for, was just abundantly given to his brother. And so, like, I assume he had a lot of resentment towards him. And so, I mean, I don't know how much more we want to kind of dig into Cary as a young child, but like, before he could even walk, I have the name of this pulled up here, and I'm going to attempt to pronounce it, but it is called trichotillomania. So before he could even walk, he was suffering from trichotillomania because as a little child, he was trying to get attention from his mother. His mother would just flat out ignore him. And if he would start crying, his father would just scream in his face. He developed this, I guess we'd kind of call it a mental illness or an OCD, something like that, where he would just start pulling his hair out.
Yeah.
So he was just yanking his hair out. And so later in life too, I mean, he would have still like actual bald spots from this. And he was like relentlessly teased, and he would always wear a ball cap trying to cover it up. But you have to kind of feel for young Cary at this point. And then also he started, and probably a lot of this had something to do with the resentment towards his mother. He started having these like dark fantasies about wanting to hurt women, wanting to strangle women, wanting to do things to them. And he resisted it. Actually, it was like intrusive thoughts, almost like an OCD intrusive thought that started like popping into his mind, and some might call a demon, something like that, that was trying to kind of oppress him and so he had this thing that he was wrestling with, and he didn't want to embrace it, actually, which I find sad, because this ended up taking over him.
I'm not saying that if you're a bad mom, your son will turn out to be a serial killer. However, what I am saying is that the more we learn about serial killers, the through line of all of it is mommy issues with the mom not loving them enough, issues with the mom loving them too much in some cases, but there's always mother issues. It's every single serial killer. I don't know if you have ever read John, what is his last name? The FBI agent that started interviewing the serial killers and stuff like that. Somebody in my chat will know.
Talking about. Yeah, yes. I always have to yell to my chat, "Save me!"
Who is that guy? John something. But I've read a couple of his books, and the more we learn about the minds of serial killers, the more we find out that they have mom issues. I wanted to play this interview that Stephen did on Good Morning America, but then chat. Go over to Nate's stream, because as soon as we're done with the Stephen part of this, we're turning off my stream. And if you want to see the rest of the story, you are going to have to go over there. I would appreciate it if you'd subscribe. He's my friend, and he's just starting out. And I think you'll enjoy, if you enjoy my channel, I think you will also enjoy his channel. So I'm going to put, you have to, I guess I can put the link. I'm going to put the link to your channel in my chat. It's also in the description, but start heading over there now. I'm going to play this video, and when we're done with this, we're shutting it down. I'll do the part where Stephen dies, and then we're going to shut it down, and you're going to have to go over there to hear about Cary and what he did in Yosemite. Okay. So this interview was done just like a month, not even a month after. Yeah, because he was found in February 1980. This is March 14th, 1980. I cannot believe his parents put him on television. It's crazy to me. Also, one of the other things that I found out when researching this is his dad did not believe in therapy, which I have to say I don't believe. I mean, I believe in therapy, but I think it's overused sometimes, but in a case like this kid, after being kidnapped for 7 years, definitely needed some sort of mental health help in his life, and his dad flat out dug his heels in, put his foot down, and said, "No, you're not talking to any shrinks." He
Yeah.
thought it was witchcraft mumbo jumbo, which is, like I said, it is overused a lot, but in a case like this, it definitely needs some sort of professional help, I would think.
Yeah, 100%.
Uh,
So I'm ready when you are if we want to.
okay.
1972, Stephen Stayner disappeared on his way home from school in Merced, California. He was 7 years old. 2 weeks ago, he walked into a police station in Ukiah, California with a younger child who had been kidnapped recently. Apparently, Stephen had been kidnapped and told that he had been adopted. Stephen had been calling his abductor Dad for some time. For 7 years, his parents, Kay and Delbert Stayner, never gave up hope that he was alive. And this morning, they have these three members of the Stayner family joined us, and they are joining us from San Francisco, where it's still the middle of the night. By the way, because there is a legal case pending, there are details we cannot talk about. Michael Hyder is their attorney, and he is with us this morning really to make sure that nothing is said that would influence their cases. Good morning, Stephen and Mr. and Mrs. Stayner and Michael Hyder. Nice to have you all with us.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you.
Stephen, to police and your parents, obviously you just disappeared off the face of the map. What happened that afternoon? Do you remember when you were walking home from school?
Yes, I was walking home from school, and I was stopped by a man along the street just a few blocks from my house, and he asked me if I wanted to, me or my mother wanted to donate something to a church, and I had told him that my mother would probably want to, and so he offered me a ride home. I had refused the first time, telling him that my house is just a few blocks away, and he had asked me several more times, and after a while I had taken the ride. And then a car pulled up, and I got in, and they passed the road that I lived on, and I had told them that was the road I lived on. They said that we'll just call your parents to see if you can stay the night.
Were you afraid?
Not that much. I was a little bit.
What did they tell you as the days went on? Why they were keeping you with them, and what did they tell you about your family?
Well, the first night they had said they called my parents and said it was all right that I stayed the night. The second night they said that they had called them again and said that I could stay another night. Then one of them went out and came back and said that he went to court and got in possession of me and said that I was his.
How did you feel about that when you heard that?
I really forgotten what I felt at that time. It was kind of a shock to me.
You called him, I've been told that you called him Dad. How long before you started calling him Dad? Do you have any idea when that started?
That started about a week after my abduction.
What were your thoughts during the 7 years about your parents? Did you think about them? And if so, what went through your mind?
Through the 7 years, I don't remember what went through my mind, but I thought of my parents very often.
Mr. Stayner, did you have any doubts during those 7 years that you'd see your Stephen again?
Well, I had a lot of hope up to 2 years ago. There was a few things that came up that I kind of lost my hope and faith in it. But I was wrong.
Fortunately. Mrs. Stayner, did you share his hope for that period and then lose it at any point, or what happened with your
No,
mind?
I never did lose my hope that I would find Steve. I didn't get into all the things that Dell did. I was oblivious to all that kind of stuff. I just went merrily on my way, believing that Stephen would be home one day.
So you could see his parents were kind of, well, you can shut down the screen share, by the way. This part's for later. This part's for your channel. So I just don't understand. How do you feel about them putting him on TV so soon after this event happened?
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, it seems a little, I don't want to say exploitative, but kind of in a way. I'm sure the family was kind of offered money from news,
Yeah.
you know, and man, it is interesting looking at his mother, kind of knowing that I don't know, I don't want to say, it's hard for me to judge her, but also it's like, she's definitely the cause for a lot of what happened later. And she seems like such a nice lady on the television, and it's, it's
Yeah.
weird.
She seemed kind of cold to me, but I think
Yeah.
before I watched this, I kind of knew the story, so maybe that's why I'm getting those vibes. So to wrap up Steven's story, he got married. He had a normal life. Well, I shouldn't say he had a normal life. When he got back to school, kids are horrible. Children
Yeah.
are horrible. And obviously his story was all over the news. And part of his story was that he was molested by this man for 7 years. So his people in his school were calling him the F slur. People in his school were saying that he was gay, which back then in 1980 was the most awful thing that you could be called, right?
Yeah.
They were not kind to him. I think a lot of it is rooted in jealousy. He was getting a lot of attention. He was on the TV. I think a lot of it.
He's a handsome kid. Yeah.
Yeah, he's very kind and meek, and it was said this was said about him before he was even kidnapped, so I think that's another reason why he was the perfect victim, is because he's not one that was gonna speak up or speak out, but he did end up wrangling together a normal-ish life. He married a girl that he met. He worked at a butcher shop, and he met her in a butcher shop, and at his work, he met her there, and he fell in love, and he married her, and they had 2 kids together. And then he was on his way home from work one day on a main road, and a guy in a truck pulled out. There was a stop sign that he didn't stop at, and he pulled out in front of him while he was on his motorcycle, and Stephen ended up dying in this motorcycle crash. A horrific death. He was not wearing a helmet at the time. Not that probably wouldn't even saved him, how bad this accident was. Turns out the guy who ran the stop sign and pulled out in front of him was an illegal immigrant from Mexico. He hit and ran, so he left the scene of the accident, and they ended up finding him in Tijuana, Mexico, is where they ended up picking him up. So
Was he ever brought to justice at all? I hadn't read it. That's good.
Yeah, and let me pull my notes up. I'm just sometimes I just talk from my brain, and sometimes I use notes. I was just talking from my brain just now. So on September 16th, 1989, so this is 9 years after he was found. At the age of 24, Stephen was riding his motorcycle home from work in Merced, California, when he collided with a car that ran a stop sign. It pulled right into his path. The impact of the collision was devastating, and Stephen succumbed to his injuries shortly thereafter. Stephen's untimely death was a heartbreaking conclusion to a life filled with both extraordinary courage and immense suffering. Despite the trauma he endured during his years in captivity, Stephen strived to build a normal life for himself after his escape and rescue. He was married. He had 2 children and worked to support his family. His death left a void in the lives of those who loved him and the community who had rallied around him during his ordeal.
Yeah.
Steve's story continues to be remembered. There's a statue built to him. I think it's in a park there in Merced, and it's a statue of him holding Timmy's hand. He saved this boy's life. He was a hero in this community, so it was really devastating to everyone in the whole community. Um, and I don't have anything about if the guy was brought to justice, but I do know they went and picked him up in Mexico. So I assume that he served some sort of time for that. By the way, Purcell only served 2 years for kidnapping Stephen. 2 years for kidnapping a guy or a kid for 7 years. And here's why. Sorry, my allergies. I was fine, and then as soon as we hit the live button, my sinuses are ringing. Stephen was embarrassed from being a victim, and I think it does also have to do with the fact that the kids were making fun of him at school and stuff. So he did not want to tell the police that he was sodomized almost nightly and all of these horrible sexual things happened to him. He did not want to come out and announce that to the world. So when he first told his story, he left that part out. So the man, Purcell was only charged with the kidnapping and not the sexual abuse of the children. He did end attempting to kidnap. He was sentenced to 4 years. He served 2 of them, got let off on good behavior, whatever the heck that is, because it's California, right? And then he ended up trying to purchase another kid and was arrested for that. He ended up dying in prison. So he did go back to prison. He had a housekeeper and he asked the housekeeper to help him purchase a kid. And the housekeeper turned in, thank God, right? All right. So that's Stephen's story. We're going to go on to talk about his brother, Cary, who's his older brother, 7 years older. We talked about him a little bit in the beginning of this show. I'm turning off my stream now. If you're still in my stream, what are you doing here? You need to be over in Nate's stream. I'm going to put the link there one more time, and we're turning it off.
All right. Yeah. Come join us. We're going to get a little deeper and it's going to get a lot darker. So trigger warning. We're going to delve into some very dark stuff.
If you're watching this after the fact, his channel is linked in the description down below. On your way out, please hit the like button. I appreciate it. If you're over on Nate's stream, come on over for a second and subscribe to my channel too. I do this every Sunday at 7:30. I also stream with a co-host on Wednesday nights, and we drink we drink beers and we talk about dumb criminals and watch body cam. So it's a lot of fun. We'll see you over there. And I'm turning it off now. Goodbye, YouTube.
Bye, guys. And hello, everyone, again. Let's see here.
Oh, I turned it off.
Okay. Erica says she's here. That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of people have already jumped over, which is awesome.
All right.
Okay. Vegetarian carnivores here. Here we go. Wahoo is here. Okay.
I think we're off of my stream now.
You're off of the stream. Okay. So we can jump back into this now. And I wanted to touch just a little bit more about Cary as a youngster, right? So we kind of talked a little bit about him suffering kind of neglect and definitely verbal abuse from his father. I'm sure it got physical at times. There's reports that like the dad beat the mom. Dad was not a good dude. I don't know if I have anything that said that like Cary was like physically abused by his father, but we'll get into his father's brother in a little bit. So they also grew up Mormon, which I think kind of adds a little flavor to this.
While you get into it, I will be right back. 2 seconds.
You got it. So like someone had mentioned earlier in the chat, let me see where that was. It was Elizabeth Smart. I think that like, I have nothing against the Mormons. I have a lot of friends that are Mormons, but the Mormon church sometimes I think can add a little bit of, they're very polite. They're taught to, proselytize is not the word I'm looking for, but they're very friendly. They're very open. They're very, I think that it made it kind of easy maybe for his brother to be kind of talked into and abducted, because I mean that's the saddest part actually, is because Mormon people are so nice, dude. Yes, Erica, you're the one that mentioned Elizabeth Smart. Also grew up in the Mormon church, and the way that she was abducted, and maybe that's a story that I'll cover, because I mean that's another one that really affected me as a kid. Was Elizabeth Smart. My mom was obsessed with it. She would read books about it. She would tell me all about it. But Elizabeth Smart was kind of abducted by like I don't know if you'd even call him like a cult leader, because he was a cult leader of one. But that's kind of what happened. Because of her upbringing, this man was able to say that he was a prophet, and he was able to manipulate her. She was able to be kind of religiously abused, I guess you could say. And that's how she was coerced and how she was kept and kidnapped for so long. So I don't know if it like really has too much to do with it, but I think it adds an extra layer, just that Cary was raised Mormon as well. And maybe that affected how his brother was kidnapped. But so let us get into it. I have some notes here. I actually had written down an entire script, and then Katie was like, "You're going to sound like a robot." So I'm periodically looking down at my script and then trying to have a conversation with you guys so it sounds normal.
Sorry for the interruption. My husband has been in Las Vegas for work for the last 4 days, and he just got home, so I needed to say hello to him. I haven't seen him since Friday.
Hello, Mr. Zed. All right. I'm glad he made it home safe. And here we go. So I wanted to get into this a little bit. I was talking about how growing up Mormon maybe affected like how his brother got kidnapped and things like that. It was the same way Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped as well, because Erica in the chat had mentioned Elizabeth Smart earlier. So let's get back into Cary here. He was an extremely bright kid. According to all of his teachers, he had a very I don't know if he got an IQ test, but he was a very bright kid. They put him in accelerated learning. So they like accelerated him and put him into, further classes, whatever that is. He played sports. He did baseball. He was very artistic. And in high school, he was actually voted most likely to succeed.
He succeeded at something.
And he was also voted the most artistic as well, because he made cartoons actually for his local high school newspaper. On the surface, it looked like everything was good at home. He had a mom, he had a dad, he had his family, and it looked like they were a loving family. But in reality, there was a lot of problems going on, obviously. And so Cary was always looking for a father figure. And obviously his father was not the figure. And so when he was, when he was about 11 years old, his own household was extremely strict, very strict. And so he started going over to his uncle's house. And we had briefly mentioned this because his uncle's house was more free. The kids over there kind of got to do what they wanted, stay up late, watch TV, whatever he wanted to do. It seemed like a fun place to go. He really enjoyed the time with his uncle. And his uncle became kind of a father figure to him. And so he started staying over there more often. And then one evening, his uncle said, "Hey, come stay in bed with me tonight." And this started a situation where he started getting sexually abused by his uncle. And this changed a lot of things. Go ahead.
Do we know that for a fact, or is that just what he says? Because I didn't get to the bottom. I kind of tried to look into it. And here's what I was wondering. Because of his brother's story and his brother getting all of that attention because of his story, do you think that this might be something that he just made up?
Quite possibly. I mean, it is totally possible. From what I've heard, it sounded like this was pretty, but It could. I'm
Well,
not totally sure.
and the only reason I ask is because I did look into his uncle's record, and his uncle was never arrested or even accused from any other children besides Cary. So that's
Yeah.
why, like, usually when somebody has that screw loose in their head, it's not just a one-time deal. It's different kids over a period of time, and somebody's going to say something. And as far as I could tell, just from and I just briefly looked into it. I more looked into my side of the story, but it seemed to me, it just occurred to me that maybe, possibly, he saw Stephen getting all this attention after having been molested by Parnell, that he may have made it up about his uncle, especially since his uncle died, or maybe it was an excuse for why he died,
Yeah.
or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a possibility that you can't necessarily rule out, and I don't know that. I
Yeah.
don't know. Uh,
We raise the serious questions over
yeah.
here on the Reality Darkly show.
I mean, one would hope that actually didn't happen. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. I mean, him even, let's say he made it up, is also an interesting view into this kid's head. So
Yeah,
whether it happened or didn't happen, I guess it's not good.
for sure. Yeah.
And it is interesting though. So let's say that it is true. This was his kind of his fatherly figure that kind of betrayed him. And it is interesting as well that the only kind of paternal people in his life were all kind of affected by molestation, right?
Yeah.
His mother had been molested or yes, abused by her father. And then his father ended up molesting his sister. And then his uncle supposedly, allegedly, you have to put allegedly, I guess,
Yeah.
Molested Cary. So it's not a good home.
For sure.
And let's see here. No-win situation, very bad, says Meaty. Yes, that's true. Okay, so then we can kind of get into a little bit more with Cary here. Let's see here. Let me pull up to my other notes here. That one. Here we go. So we talked about his brother being kidnapped. We talked about his brother being abused. We talked about his brother dying in a horrific motorcycle crash later. And I think that that's kind of an interesting thing because the world was focused on Stephen, and what was kind of happening in the background was in Cary's mind was really dark, right?
Yeah.
And so Cary was the older brother. Yeah, and so we had talked a little bit about that, right? So he had struggled with some of this mental illness, the compulsion for him to pull his hair, him being bullied relentlessly in high school, and then also he had very dark fantasies as a young child. I'm going through all my my little notes here.
Yeah.
So now I had heard, and I don't know where exactly I had heard this, but did Cary start hearing voices? Is that what one of the things that had started?
I didn't read that, but I could be, like I said, I didn't look too much into Cary as much as I did Stephen. So
okay, yeah, I had heard that Cary had started hearing voices, and they were kind of relentlessly telling him to hurt women, and so he had this kind of narrative going on in his head, and I guess we can get into the first thing that happened here. So in 1997, Cary had began working as a handyman at the Cedar Lodge in El Portal, California. It was a little lodge pretty close to Yosemite National Park. And he later claimed that this was just he saw an opportunity. So he's the handyman at this hotel, and he sees that there's only one family staying at this hotel, and he saw that it was 3 women.
It's the off season.
It's the off season. There wasn't anyone there, and tragically, this is actually Valentine's Day, and he said, "You know what? I'm going to do it." So he's the handyman there, and it was around 11 o'clock at night, started knocking at the door and saying, "Hey, I need to fix something. I'm the maintenance guy here." And that's the thing about Cary, is that he was like a tall, handsome, like, from everything that I've ever heard, he was like very charismatic. He was a good speaker, and he just kind of charmed them. He kind of just kept knocking at the door and saying, like, "Hey, I got to go fix that thing in your bathroom. There's a water leak." And the mother was like, "No, I don't see a leak." He goes, "Hey, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get in trouble here.
You need to
Like,
check in.
please, I need to check on this." And tragically, she said, "Okay." And she let him in. So, and again, this was my friend's mother. And I always think about this. As I tell this, I kind of see my friend's mom. Her name was Carol. She was only 42 years old. And there's the pup. Hi, pup.
Well, the people from my channel are in your chat asking. On my channel, by the way, if people support me during the show, the dogs get a milk bone. So that's what they were asking for that. So
I love it.
There's Xena. People don't come to see me; they come to see her. So.
Richard Hillard says, charismatic, like a Ted Bundy type. Yes,
Yes.
dude, that is exactly the type. Like, I mean, if you were to look at this guy, he is kind of tall, dark, and handsome. He's kind of has that thing going on. But unfortunately, and he's real clean cut. I mean, he wouldn't look like the type of person that would do this. And those are always the scariest ones, because you have an idea in your head that you would see like a crazy killer, and you'd spot him right off the bat and be like, "Hey, I'm watching out for that guy."
Never the case.
Never the case. Dangerous stuff.
Look at BTK. He worked at the church. He was a family man. Look at Ted
He was a
Bundy.
deacon. Yeah.
Yeah, look at Ted Bundy. He, from everybody who's met him outside of being murdered by him, say he's such a nice guy. Every time you see any of these people when they're interviewing their neighbors, they say, "Oh, that guy." They never say, "Oh yeah, we had a suspicion about that guy." They're like, "Oh yeah, he brought my grandma groceries when she was sick," or that, like, just totally normal, nice people.
I mean, also, again, maybe some of that Mormon upbringing. Again, nicest people in the entire world that I've ever met. I mean, I'm sure that's kind of what he was. Yeah, here you go. Sub to Nate. He's a sweetheart. Thank you, Meaty. Appreciate you, brother. Yo Mama says we are subbing to Nate's channel. Thank you, Mom. All right.
Now you just have that in the back of your head every time you're on your YouTube channel. Katie's mom is here. Mind your P's and Q's.
That's true. I got to be nice.
Yeah.
So tragically, Carol let him in.
Yeah.
And what happened almost immediately is he started attacking the mom. He put the two teenage girls. So the 15-year-old was named Julie, and then they had a foreign exchange student from Argentina, and her name was Silvina Peloso. And he put them in the bathroom, and then he strangled and murdered Carol's son. So right off the bat, he killed the mother, and then he threw her in the back of a car to kind of, get her out of the way. And then what it sounds like is he took Silvina Peloso, and again, this is when we're going to get really dark here. He assaulted her and then also murdered her as well, and threw her in the back of the car.
Yeah.
And then he had some weird, twisted fantasy, almost like a weird romantic thing that he had in his mind. And he took my friend's sister, Julie, and kept her for a while, and proceeded to do things. Any of his dark fantasies were done, and it's just awful.
It's horrible.
And that to me is probably one of the hardest things I think about, like my friend, and thinking about him having to live with what happened to his sister, all those kind of thoughts. It's like, because, it's somewhere in your mind, you're like, at least my mom died quick.
Well, and it was so publicized. There was no way to get around not knowing exactly what happened to your sister,
Yeah.
And I think it was publicized not only because he's a serial killer, but also because of who his brother is. I think it was even more on the mainstream news because of that,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because his brother was a hero, but we're even getting before he was well known. So
Yeah.
this was kind of a shocking thing. I think in the community in Yosemite to have people go missing like this. But this almost like it didn't fly under the radar, not really. But the next thing is what really brought all this to light. And so it's again, it's really tragic, really terrible. But he then took Julie and he took her into the car, and they drove out to Yosemite, where he again had assaulted her, and then the way it's described, and I assume this is like through his narrative because no one else, but the way it's described is that he was almost like holding her like a child. Like he sat there and he like carried her and he brought her out to this really remote location. And I've heard so many stories, but like I don't know how to like substantiate them. I had heard like stories where she had almost talked him out of it, or some weird stories like that. I mean, these are all stories that I heard as a kid, probably.
Well, and all of these stories are from him because nobody else was there. The only other person that was there was Julie, and she's no longer with us to tell her side. So,
what's interesting too about him is that he has this ego where he wants to be seen as kind of like a predator, but he doesn't want to be seen as like a rapist, whatever you want to say that, as an assaulter. So he really tried to downplay a lot of that because that to him maybe seemed weak, like taking advantage of a child or something like that.
He definitely was, though. He was.
He was.
I don't know if you don't want to say that word on your channel. I won't say.
Well, we can say. I don't know what's allowed.
It's allowed when you're talking about it in this sort of context. So we'll talk about all that later. I'm going to help you get your crime channel up and running.
So, I mean, that to me is one of the weirder aspects of him because he wanted to feel like a tough guy in a weird way. Like when they finally kind of talked into him. Yeah. He wants to be known as a nice predator, says Richard. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's nuts, dude. So he then, again, trigger warning, he slit her throat and killed her and left her there. And it's really terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And he almost would have gotten away with this too, because he then left and he started getting nervous. And so he went back, took the vehicle that had the foreign exchange, Sylvana, I'm sorry, I have it right here, Sylvina, and Carol in the back of the car. And he took them to a remote location and set the car on fire and did get rid of a lot of the evidence. And he would have gotten away with it, except he couldn't control himself.
He took their purse or a wallet or something and dropped it off in a different town, like 50 miles away or something like that too, I believe.
Yep. I mean, the thing is, he
were arrested for it. Like other people were arrested for this crime and were in jail when he confessed to it. So he would have definitely gotten away with it.
100%. Do we want to pull up that video? I think this is not a terrible time for this one, right? Or maybe I don't remember which one this one is, but I think this is a good time for that. But maybe after. What do you think? You're muted, Katie. Sorry.
All right. Yeah, we could do it now. It's only 1:30, so it's short,
Okay.
but yeah.
Let's pull this one up real fast then.
Ever since their daughter, granddaughter, and family friend disappeared right after Valentine's Day, Francis and Carol Carrington have learned to wait.
They're beautiful girls that were just on the verge of growing up.
Days stretched into weeks. The families kept a hopeful vigil. Sylvina's parents flew in from Argentina. By the middle of March, the worst possible news. The bodies of Carol and Sylvina were found in the trunk of their burned-out rental car, dumped near Sonora.
She wouldn't hurt anything or anybody, not even with words.
Investigators found Julie's body a week later near Lake Don Pedro. The Carringtons tried to fill the hole in their hearts, starting their own reward fund to help other families. and they quietly waited for a break in the case.
Yes, it brings some closure, no question about it.
A representative of the Carrington Reward Fund actually contacted the family of Joey Armstrong after learning of her disappearance and murder. The Carringtons wanted to help, never realizing their losses would lead to the same suspect.
We've been through it a lot longer than they have, and maybe we can offer them some support. We'll sure try.
With a motel maintenance worker now the prime suspect, the Carringtons know the waiting isn't quite over.
We hope this is brought to a just end. This is all that we can ask for.
Sharon Ito, News 10.
So isn't that crazy that they reached out to this family when Joey was missing, the park ranger was missing? They didn't even know that their cases were connected, and they were reaching out after suffering such a great loss of their own to try to be some sort of support to Joey's family. Not even knowing that it was the same guy that did this to both of their families. That just shows what type of people your friend's family was, to be going through your own thing and thinking maybe I can be some sort of support to somebody else. It really shows their character.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really tragic. And I think about Jimmy from time to time. I don't know where he lives anymore, and I should probably try to reach out and say hi to him. But let's get back into this real quick here. So how this all got, I guess, how they got caught here, or how he got caught here is the bodies at first were found in a burned out abandoned car near the Sierra Nevada foothills. And like I said, he would have basically gotten away with it because they, like you were talking about before, they had found some suspects and they had arrested these suspects. And there was a lot of I don't know. I mean, in this time frame, in this part of California, there's some sketchy folks. And
even today, sketchy folks in California. Am I right?
And so Cary had been he had been, they had definitely interviewed him. They had talked to him, but he was not a suspect at all. They were like, not this clean cut guy. He seems like a nice dude. He's just a handyman. And so they didn't have they had no evidence that he had anything to do with this at the time.
Yeah.
So later he is driving around, and here's another interesting thing about him, which is kind of sad and kind of interesting. His father was a really outdoorsy dude and used to take him camping all the time. And so this gave him kind of a lifelong love of nature. And so, I mean, this is kind of why he was where he was, I guess you'd say. And he was really into being a nudist. So he would go to all of these different nudist colonies and all these different nudist groups.
So weird.
And it is bizarre. So he was kind of a naturalist or a nudist, and he loved to be naked in nature. And he is going out, and he's in Yosemite, and some of the most beautiful places in the entire world is Yosemite. It's absolutely gorgeous there. And he was out, and I should talk about Yosemite too. We can break into Yosemite at a different point, different episode about all the different paranormal stuff that happens at Yosemite. Yosemite is an interesting place, actually. So the amount of darkness that has happened there, especially with this involving this case, but also sightings of Bigfoot, UFOs, aliens, abductions, all kinds of things. People going missing. A lot of people have gone missing around this area. So there was a let me see here. So there was another lady that was working for her name was Joey Armstrong. I'm not good at structuring this, and that's the stuff I have to work on as well. But Joey Armstrong was a really pretty lady, really nice lady. Everything I heard was she was sweet, she was young, she was kind, and she was working there as a
park ranger or a naturalist.
She was a naturalist at Yosemite Institute. And what I heard is he was just driving by, and he saw her, and he noticed that she was alone. And again, he is just a criminal of just opportunity. And so I think he suffered again from like these thoughts in his head, this OCD, what like this demon that was kind of like really oppressing him. This idea in his head popped up: I'm going to hurt her. And he says that in a split second, he had made the decision that he was going to do it. So he goes to, she was staying at a cabin and she was there by herself. And he pulls up and he knocks on the door and then he forcefully enters when she opens the door. And he just instantly grabs her and kind of overpowers her. Is
Pulled up a picture of Joey if you want to share it on the screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, she was a beautiful girl. I guess that's the only picture of her, but yeah.
And from what I believe he tied her up. So I think he tied her ankles and her feet, and he threw her in the back of his car or his truck, and he's driving. And she was a fighter, and she was like, "Not today," and she jumps out of the back of his truck. Yeah, she was not just she did not go willingly, and she jumped out of that truck. And unfortunately, because her ankles were bound, she couldn't outrun him. So he stopped the car, chased her, and he was such a psychotic, mean, evil person that he had these like bouts of rage that he just attacked her. He was so angry that she didn't do what she was told because there's something about these type of folks. They just want power. It's a power. It's this disgusting, and she wasn't giving it to him willingly. She wasn't complying with his orders, and he just lost it. And he ended up again. Okay, trigger warning here again for extreme violence. He slit her throat so severely that she basically became decapitated. And I'm not even certain if he even assaulted her at all. Like, sexually assaulted her, because he was like trying to take her to a different location where he was going to live out his fantasies. And so, I really hope that it was quick and it was over quickly, because absolutely disgusting, absolutely evil. And but because he did this is what eventually got him caught. Because he was sloppy with this one, and because he had to do it immediately, or he didn't have to, but here you go.
Oh, well, do we want to play this one now? This is about when he got caught. Or did you want to get into that first?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just getting it ready.
You're good. I like it. Yeah, you're so the connection started to emerge a little bit here, and I'm trying to remember exactly how they caught him. I think there had been a witness that had seen him, because this was like,
I can tell you how they caught him, because he's an idiot. That's how they caught him. They went to this. His car was a distinctive car. I forget what it was, but it was very distinctive. And his car was seen in the area, and they knew it was his car because he worked at the lodge right outside of the place. So they went to track him down, thinking he was just a witness, thinking that we just want to talk to this guy to see if he saw anything. They didn't think he was a suspect at the time. They went to track him down at the nudist colony, and they said, "Hey, are you Cary Stayner?" And instead of being a normal person and being like, "Yeah, what's up? What can I do for you?" He immediately raised his hands, and it's like, "Oh, you got me. You got me." Like, and the cops are like, what? Wait, what? What do you we just wanted to ask you about." So then on the way back to it was several miles. I want to say like a 45-minute drive back to the station, because there's next to nothing out in that area. It's all woods, right? I haven't been there. I'm not familiar with the area. You have been. I imagine it's a long ways between town to town. But on the way back, the cops were just talking to him, like having a chat, and he ended up. We'll see in the news story I have pulled up, but that's how they caught him, because instead of just going with the cops and answering their questions, he raised his hands, and they thought that that was very suspicious.
Here we go.
Well, February marks 25 years since the murders of the Yosemite sightseers.
Now, I sat down with one of the special agents who is revealing how he got the killer, Cary Stayner, to confess. On a sightseeing trip to Yosemite, Carol's son, her daughter Julie, and their friend Silvina Peloso vanished in February of 1999. Weeks later, Carol and Silvina's bodies were found in their charred rental car down a cliff.
We have recovered 2 bodies from the trunk of the vehicle.
But where was Julie? The killer sent the FBI this hand-drawn map with a chilling message. We had fun with this one. It showed a trail from Highway 120 with an X along.
He kept putting in all these. He sent letters to the cops and stuff like that because he wanted the body to be found, because he knew what it felt like to have a loved one missing. And he was in a bar or something like that talking about the case, because it was the talk of the town in the area that these 3 women went missing. And somebody in the bar, just another bar patron, said, I can't imagine what it'd be like to have a loved one missing, not knowing what happened to them. And he's like, well, shit, I know what that feels like, because my brother was missing for 7 years. So he was sending these letters to the police trying to get them to find Julie's body, which they didn't end up finding it. But he kept putting we as if it was a bunch of people, or at least 2 people that did this.
I do find it really interesting that he used the plural there.
Mm-hmm.
We had fun with this one. And again, almost that pathology, the voices that I had heard about, the voices inside of his head, the demons that he was wrestling with, whether figuratively or realistic, he was definitely dealing with something. And it is creepy to me, the usage of we.
It could have been. And also keep in mind that they had 2 people. They ended up arresting 2 people that were the wrong suspects in this case too. So the police also took it to heart. The we part. Katie said, put that back up.
Sorry.
John Walsh set up the Adam Walsh Foundation to help other crime victims, like the Cardigan said. Yes, I actually did a whole episode about Adam Walsh. If you look back in my Let's Be Frank from the Let's Be Frank YouTube channel was on that one with me. I believe it was Frank. I think Frank did that one with me. Maybe not. I could be confused. Anyway, I did a whole episode about Adam Walsh and John Walsh's foundation and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of charities that do that, and also charities that when your loved one is missing in the woods and stuff like this, or in an area like this, that will go out and search for missing people. So all right, let's get back to the video. Sorry, I like to chop it up and put my 2 cents in when we're watching a video like this from CBS,
I like your 2 cents, so feel free.
On the shore of Don Pedro Reservoir, where investigators discovered Julie's body. Months later, the killer struck again, beheading naturalist Joey Armstrong in Yosemite.
I'm going to be totally honest and not hold anything back.
Then FBI Special Agent Jeffrey Reineck was sent to talk with a potential witness in the cases, Cary Stayner, a handyman at the Cedar Lodge, the motel where the sightseers stayed. Stayner was at the Laguna del Sol nudist colony in Wilton.
That drive
Reineck convinced Stayner to ride with him to the FBI office.
During that time, we got to know each other.
Cary opened up about his brother Stephen, the subject of the movie I Know My First Name is Stephen.
At age 7, Stephen Stayner was kidnapped a few blocks from his Merced home.
He escaped his captor at 14. Cary was not happy over the short sentence his brother's kidnapper got.
He went to prison for 7 years, and yet they held Stephen for 7 years, and he felt that was really not right. And I agreed with him. I had no problem. I agree with you.
You ultimately gained his trust in a very short period of time.
And I don't judge people, so when they talk to me, they feel comfortable.
That connection ultimately got Stayner to confess to killing Joey Armstrong. But before admitting to killing the sightseers, Reineck says Stayner tried to negotiate. He wanted images of young girls.
This part is crazy. So he he said, "Oh, I know what happened to the tourists." And he said, "Here's what I want for that information. I want naked photos of young girls. I also want a made-for-TV movie made about me, just like they did about his brother. He wants the same sort of miniseries made about him, and he wants to be sentenced to a prison that's close to his family." And I don't know if it's said in this news story I pulled up, but they said this officer said pick one of the three, and the out of those three things, what do you think is the most important thing to this guy? Yeah, it's the naked pictures of young girls. Mind blown.
Monster.
Yeah,
Absolute
Family to
monster.
get the reward money and to end up in a federal prison near his family. Reinick recalls asking him to pick one.
Oh yeah, here we go.
What's the one thing? It's the one thing only. And he chose the pornography.
Stayner did not get any of his requests, but ended up confessing to killing the sightseers, saying he planned the attacks for more than a year and explained why he drew that map to investigators.
It was bothering him that Julie's body was laying out there in the elements and not being found.
Stayner was convicted and sentenced to death.
What's valuable to me is the helping the families and trying to give pleasure to the families.
Cary Stayner is now 62 years old, and at San Quentin, investigators have looked at him.
He's dead now, by the way. He's dead.
5 other killings across the valley in the foothills dating back to the 80s. That includes his own uncle, but he's never been charged in those cases. His brother, Stephen, died in a motorcycle crash in 1989. Now, Reinick has also written a book. It's called In the Name of the Children, an FBI agent's relentless pursuit of the nation's worst predators. And you're going to hear more from him in tonight's episode of FBI.
Okay, well, we're not watching that episode, but if you guys want to go find it, it was like 10 years ago. So,
Katie, are you sure he's dead? Because I don't see a date of death here on his Wikipedia. It says that he's still in San Quentin.
I might be wrong about that. I'm fake news. I'm fake news. Sorry, I thought he died of a heart attack. For some reason, I thought he died of a heart attack in prison.
I really wish he did.
Oh,
Cary
you
Stayner
know what it
guilty.
was? It's Parnell that died in prison. Sorry, I got. There's too many criminals in this episode. I got him confused.
Yeah.
Parnell died
He
in
is
prison.
still awaiting execution in San Quentin to this day.
Well, guess what? California is not going to put anybody to death because it's California. So don't hold your breath on that.
Oh man.
I was thinking of the wrong person. Sorry.
You know, the more I look at Cary Stayner, he has an odd-shaped head.
Yeah,
that has nothing to do with anything. Maybe it does. I don't know. It's really horrific. It's just a complete tragedy, and I try to think like what could have prevented all of this. And the thing is, there's that whole nature versus nurture, and are people sometimes born complete sociopaths? Yes. And then I would think way more often people are created that way, right? And I feel that Cary, unfortunately, was created that way.
Yeah.
There's nothing that made me think that he was born that way. From everything that I've read, it was just a case of abuse and neglect, and perhaps sexual abuse as well. That kind of turned him into a monster.
There's 5 children in that family, but the other 3, besides Stephen, who was kidnapped for 7 years and died young, they were girls. So I think the male and female brains are different, to where the females, just in general, females don't commit crimes like this as often. It does happen. It's happened before, but statistically speaking, different sexes have different levels of crime. So.
Yeah, 100%. And I have to also acknowledge this. Victoria Rockwell says, yeah, there are many abused people in this world that would never do this. Some people are just born evil. So yeah, I'm in no way excusing what he did. And he actively made that decision, because I think, when I was a young man, there's all kinds of like weird thoughts that go through your head, like the whole idea of like when you're standing near a cliff, you're like, I could just jump right now. I could
Yeah.
just jump like this. Those weird little intrusive thoughts.
In my head,
Yeah.
it's I could just push this person off of this cliff right
Yeah.
now. I don't think about jumping myself, but yeah.
But those are those little intrusive thoughts, and you end up becoming who you like, the thoughts that you dwell on, who you
Mhm.
like, the fantasies that you allow in your head, and who like the thoughts that you dwell on become
Yeah.
part of your character. And so I think that was an active pursuit that he had. Unfortunately, like when he was a young man, he had those fantasies in his head, and he didn't like them at first, and then
Yeah.
he probably as he grew older and went through puberty, things changed. And I know that it was said that those fantasies then took a sexual nature,
Mhm.
and he had now like sexual fantasies of hurting people. And he probably just pursued this in his mind, and then there was a tipping point, and he couldn't control his behavior anymore. And
Absolutely.
it's disgusting. Uh, what do we do to wrap this up? How do we put a bow on this? I mean,
Uh,
he's still alive, unfortunately. I'm sure monsters like him, handsome monsters like him, I would not be surprised if he has a fan club and there are women that write him and do all kinds of terrible things.
oh
You'd
yeah.
hope that that's not the case, but it happens more than you'd like to think.
Hybristophilia, it's called, when psycho women for some reason get some sort of crush or sexual. Chris Watts has women writing to him all the time. I don't know what's wrong with these people, and it happens the other way around where women will do something horrible and have men writing to them. It happened with Aileen
That makes more
Wuornos.
sense. It's a pretty men are desperate weirdos. They're like,
Uh,
I can fix her.
but
This.
there's Facebook groups dedicated to talking about how hot the Night Stalker killer was, the
Oh,
Richard Ramirez. Like it's insane, and Jeffrey Dahmer too. It's
yeah.
it's insanity, and I don't know if it's a control thing. Like I think maybe these women have been maybe cheated on a lot, and they feel like, well, if I have this relationship with somebody in prison, they can't go anywhere. They can't cheat on me. Yeah, the I can
Yeah.
fix them syndrome. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, they would never kill me with the Chris Watts people. Chris Watts killed his wife, his pregnant wife, and 2 baby daughters. And women have a crush on this guy. Well, he would never do that to me. If I would treat him right where he wouldn't have to kill me. Are you kidding me right now? It's insane. It's called hybristophilia, and these women are psycho.
Yeah. And it's tragic because exactly what Cellulite Yoga Pants is saying in there. Females find a-holes to abuse them because they're neglected or abused when they're younger, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's really tragic. And so, I mean, I think that's the best thing that we can do in this world is stop the cycles of abuse. Like,
Mhm.
I had a not the greatest childhood, and what do? I'm the best dad I can be.
Yeah.
And
Turn it
that's
around.
what you can do. Uh, and we have somebody asking, "Where's Trooster? Troofer? Is that the
For
pups?"
GB, he's not here, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, okay, I thought they were asking for your dog,
Oh, no, yeah, that's Xena.
Xena. Okay, heck yeah. Okay, so what do we? I mean, what's the best way to end this?
Uh, do you know what you're gonna do for your next episode? I always end it by saying what's coming up next.
Oh man, there are so many things.
Also,
I did have an idea.
This is your very first episode, and I know this episode is near and dear to your heart. So once you figure out what you're doing, I would say probably like a year from now, and you want to revisit this, let me know and we'll do it again. I have a case like
I'll
that.
do it justice.
I
I'll
keep
do much
thinking,
more justice later.
I think
Yeah.
that I want to read you because when I first started, one of the reasons I started is because there was a case that was near and dear to my heart. When I was growing up, there was a massacre at a Brown's Chicken franchise. It's a fast food chicken restaurant. That one of my friends was questioned in this case, and it was the killers went it went unsolved for like 9 years. So it was one of those like, oh my gosh, there's a killer among us, and this is in my adolescence and young, young adulthood. And I did that case right away when I started my channel, and I keep thinking I was a baby YouTuber then. I didn't know what I was doing. The episode kind of sucks. It's a case that not a lot of people have heard of.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like I want to go back and revisit that one. So if you ever get that urge to go back and revisit that case, you know where to find
Okay.
me, and we'll do it again.
Thank you, Katie. And I think I actually have another one near and dear to my heart. And so maybe I
Mhm.
should actually wait until I'm a little bit better to do it. But I'm thinking about Daniel Brophy. Daniel Brophy was
Yeah.
a chef instructor
Mhm.
that he was my chef instructor, actually. I went to culinary
Oh.
school and he was
Oh,
one of
wow.
my instructors, and he was a friend of mine. And
I watched that
he,
trial.
yep, he was murdered by his
Psycho
horrible
woman.
wife,
Speaking of psycho women.
Nancy Brophy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is definitely one that I want to cover. And I knew these people, outside of all of this too. And
Mhm.
I can kind of give a little insight of, conversations that I had with Nancy. She was, not an, she was an interesting lady.
Yeah.
We'll get into it. But thank you so much, Katie. Let's do some plugs.
Oh, what day is today? Monday. So Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern is episode of Booze and Body Cams on my channel, where Kfar and I crack a cold one and laugh at dumb criminals getting arrested. It's a good time. It is very light. Like, this is a very heavy episode right now. And I do my heavy episodes on Sunday evenings, but during the week we keep it light, and we watch police chases, and we watch canines biting people in the ass, and people getting pepper sprayed and stuff like that. And it's a lot of fun. So that is coming up on Wednesday. We normally do it on Fridays too. Unfortunately, this coming up Friday, I have other plans, so we're not doing it on Friday. But then I will be back here on Sunday at 7:30 Eastern. I don't know what I'm covering on Sunday, but we'll figure it out, and it will be something, I'm sure.
It will be something.
It will be
Yeah,
something.
I like it. So if you found any value with this at all and you want to help us as we're just getting started, there is a Patreon link in the description, and that would be awesome. But the best thing you could do is just like and subscribe and share this. That would be the best thing you could do. And I appreciate every single person that's listening to this. I'm going to start digging into the next thing. I think I am going to cover Daniel Brophy. He was my chef, and I respected him a lot. And it was a real tragedy. So I think that is going to be the next episode that we do. I haven't figured out exactly what day I'm going to be doing this because my little one, exactly at this time right now, he has tumbling, and I like to take him over there and do that because it's cute and fun, and he's learning gymnastics. So maybe I'll start doing it on Tuesdays or something like that. But thank you, everybody, and I will keep in touch, and I will probably start some form of social media for the show, probably an Instagram, maybe a Twitter. So thank you, guys. Look for that, and have a good night, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Katie. Thank you so much.